across all time zones, covering both hemispheres. It's time for another featured music special on the Artist First Radio Network, something that we have been producing over. Our brains getting kind of fuzzy as the years go by. I think 25 plus years at the station, interviewing great artists from all over the world, bringing you the best new music you've never heard. And tonight is no exception. We've got a great guy coming your way. I don't know, as I've listened to his music and read up about him, I think he'd be a great guy to sit down and have a six-pack with and play some music. I think you're going to enjoy the next hour. Let's welcome Mike Williams. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Z-Man. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
I think we would enjoy each other's company at a bar with I'm a piano player, and you as a vocalist, songwriter, guitar player, I think we'd have a good time.
I think we would. It's always good to get musicians together and jam.
If musicians ran this world, it would be such a better place.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, most of our listeners are going to be hearing about you for the first time tonight, so let's back it up. And I'd like to say you were born, then what happened, but so tell us about your early days of Mike Williams.
Well, I'm 62 years old, so I'm not a young lad. Way back when, like a lot of musicians and artists and songwriters, I got started with the Beatles, and I started playing guitar around 15 years old, really seriously. Before that, I was playing it, but I really got into it around 15. And I spent a lot of time writing original music. I would play covers, but I was far, far more interested in writing my own music. And so that took me into the mid to late 1970s, and had a couple of guys that I was in a band with. One of them was my brother Paul. We wrote original stuff, and we tried to put a demo together back then and see if we can get ourselves signed. But we were very young and very naive and didn't realize that most of the major record labels didn't take anything that was unsolicited. In fact, none of them do. And so, my trek continued, Z-Man, through the 70s into the 80s and 90s. I didn't do a lot of playing out. I was far more interested in doing original songwriting and studio work. And so by the time I hit 2011, that's when I decided that I was going to sit down and put my first album out, which is Leaving Dystopia. So that was released back in early 2012. I worked on it all of 2011. And then I released my second album, Hollow Moon, in 2018. So I had a few years there where I was attending to life and also trying to get some songs written. And I'm in the process now of finishing up my third single for this year. I actually released a song, Breathe, in December of 2020, Rainy Day in January of 2021, and I'm looking to release a new single titled I Know later this month or very early in March. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I was one of those guys that spent a lot of time sitting down trying to write original music, going in and out of studios, or at least trying to get my music published if I couldn't get a recording contract.
Yes, everything he said, he touched on so many great things that are different now, but that's the way it was back then. You tried with your 4-track recorder to put out something that then you'd send it to hopefully a record label would look at it, and you get a phone call or something, and then we discovered no record labels were accepting any unsolicited stuff. I had a partner, in fact, he was at one time one of the partners here at the station. He was an executive at Sony Music. And he told me they got a girl down the hall. All she does all day long is send out Dear John letters and that would say your package was destroyed unopened.
Yeah, it's disheartening because back in the day, like I said, we're young and we don't know any better. We just want to write music, be in a band, play, record, only to find out that the business is pretty much a closed shop. And unless you're really tied in or networked, it's a tough bill to fill.
And I think I know why things got to that point. In the early 80s, wasn't it? Boy, we're about the same age. I'm 61. In the early 80s, there were some monumental court cases against the major record labels for artists who stole music. One was from Saturday Night Fever album, the wildly successful at the time Saturday Night Fever album. There were a couple other higher profile cases, and the record labels lost tens of millions of dollars. And they sat around and going, how the hell are we going to know when we sign, John Doe over there? How do we know that he didn't steal that? Of course, he's going to tell us he didn't. And anyway, so they started hiring studio composers. There's guys out there. What was that guy, Jonathan Soderport? He had 40 tunes on the top 10 over his career, but you wouldn't know it. But he was writing for Sony Music, and so they knew where the stuff was coming from. Anyway, okay. The old days, Mike was horrible back then, but, well, we could turn this program into and speak for hours about how crappy things were back then. I just was taken back like a time warp when you started, because everything you said was absolutely on the money. With that in mind, let's jump into a tune here. The first cut you've selected is Give Me Love. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, Give Me Love is a song. It's short and sweet, about 3 minutes. It's just about love. There's nothing more complicated about it. It's something that we're a little short on, I think, in the world. The world today is filled with a lot of stress and worry and stuff like that. So anytime we can write a little tune about love, I think it's a good thing.
You are listening to the music of Mike Williams. He is our featured music artist tonight. I believe we're reaching him are you in North Carolina, Mike?
I am. I'm in the Raleigh area, Z-Man.
Hey, what's it like down there? I'm very familiar with that. We go to Emerald Isle. Could drive right through Raleigh on the way there. What's it like there today?
Well, today it was partly sunny, but we've had rain for like the last week. And then tonight they're saying we're supposed to get some snow, some winter weather. So it hasn't been too pleasant, which is disappointing. Usually in Raleigh, the weather is much nicer.
Yes, it is. But folks, if you're listening to this as an archive, there's a huge polar vortex that has been kicking the butts of a lot of Americans. That's why we're talking about that at this time. But Mike, how many songs do you think you've written so far?
Over the years?
Yeah, just off the cuff.
Oh boy, that's oh boy. I would say probably songs that I would call keepers in the sense that I would consider recording them. I would say probably around 100 to 150 songs, E-Man.
Man, most people never write a single song.
Yeah, well, we're talking about 40 years too, so we have to put that into perspective.
Do you remember any of the stuff you wrote in the early days? And what was the early days? You started playing guitar at 15. Were you writing at that time?
No, back in the, at that time, I was doing a lot of cover stuff and I was teaching myself, Beatles songs and Zeppelin songs and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. I started writing original stuff in the late 1970s. So I was born in 59. So, I was around 18, 19 years old at the time. I just got hooked on it. I just really didn't want to spend a lot of time doing cover music and learning that stuff. It wasn't very interesting to me. What was more interesting was, creating your own music. So, but there is a downside to that. And the downside to that is that you spend so much time doing that in recording studios and all that, that you're not out there. So that was the big mistake that I made. I really was not out there as far as doing a lot of gigs and stuff, because I was essentially a one-man show. When I said I had a band before, it was me, it was my brother. We had a drummer, Max. It was essentially the three of us, and we would work on our various parts. My brother would play bass and keyboards, and I would play the guitar and bass, and Max was the drummer. So, we would work on the songs and put them together, then go to the studio and record them, and then move to the next song that we wrote. But the problem is that you're doing this, but you're really not getting any exposure. It was very difficult back then, as we were talking about before. If you weren't signed by a major record label, you were pretty much out of luck. Nobody knew who you were. So that was one of the things that if I had to do over again, I would. I got stuck on the whole Beatles in the studio or, Steely Dan.
Yeah, one of the greatest bands of all time, I might add. Things are completely different back then. Just to have a single record or CD in most of the major record stores in the country required an enormous investment between $50,000 and $100,000 just to manufacture enough CDs so there'd be one copy in all the record stores. Now there are no record stores.
No.
It's completely different. It's a lot easier to get out to the public now. Oh, you might think so. But before I go down that rabbit hole, let's play another cut. Here's Soldier of Love. When you wrote this song, what was happening in your life? Do you remember?
Soldier of Love, it's about empowerment. So many people disempower themselves. They don't realize who they are and what they're capable of. So when I wrote Soldier of Love, it was a song that said you could be anything you want to be. You just have to come to the realization that you have that power. That's the basis of the song.
Well, I can be anybody.
are listening to a featured music special on the Artist First Radio Network. I'm Z-Man in Studio 1A. What have you found to be the most challenging aspect about this business? You've stuck with it a long time. This business has a way of beating down a lot of artists. What's been the most challenging so far?
I think as an independent artist, Z-Man, it's the exposure. It's difficult. You try to establish your social media platforms and you try to get your stuff out there. It's more difficult, obviously. At my age, I'm 62. I'm not interested anymore in going out and playing gigs and stuff like that. I have a home studio, have a 24-track digital recorder, and I'm perfectly content doing that. So I'm coming at it from that perspective. But it's trying to get the music out there so that people can hear it. I think that that's probably the biggest challenge. And that's probably the biggest challenge even if you're out there playing, right? People have got to hear the music in order for them to know you.
When you're playing out live, usually you're making money. Although we've heard many, many reports, and I know firsthand from my son's band, there are scams out there because it's so hard to find places to play when you're an indie artist. Writing your own material, because the club owner will say, well, how much of a following do you have? Well, I don't have. I'm an indie. Well, then, see ya.
Right.
And many bands have to pay to play.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the exposure. Yep.
It is. So how do you do it? But now we have the wonderful, it's all better now. It's like heaven now, listeners. I'm being sarcastic. But we have streaming services. We have Spotify. Yay. Who owns them? Oh, that's right, Google. All right, let's just depress the hell out of the listeners right out of the gate. Let's do a little quiz. Listeners, how many plays on Spotify does an artist have to receive to earn $1? Mike, do you know?
Well, I mean, the way I do it is I figured out I have to get 4 or 5 streams to get a penny.
45 or 425?
4 to 5. So in other words, let's just say 5. 5 streams, I get a penny on average.
Okay, if you Google this, folks, actually the information on the web is not really conflicting, but there's a group of folks that say it's 3 1,000ths of a cent, and it could range up to 8 1,000ths of a cent. So that could be 1,000 plays to make $1, 1,500 plays, and I don't know why different streams cost different prices, but the bottom line is it's terrible. Do you feel you're being aptly paid for your work?
No, you're not. I mean, it's a fact that you're not, and you're doing it because you're getting your music out there. So, and when I got the 5 streams per penny, Z-Man, the way I did that was my publisher was TuneCore. So I go in, I take a look at my analytics, and on average, that's what I came up with. Now it could be less, depending upon, I guess, who's streaming the music. I just want to make sure I clarify that. Yeah, I mean, there's no money in it really. In order to make yourself, $500, $1,000, $1,500, I mean, your music's got to be streamed a ton of times. And so people will ask me sometimes, they'll say, "Hey, Mike, it's easier to get your music out there now, isn't it?" I said, yeah, it is easier to get your music out there, but it's not profitable. So if you're looking to make a living, it's going to be a little difficult. They're not selling albums anymore. I mean, people can still buy my stuff. It's on Amazon. You could buy the albums, but everything is pretty much streaming revenue these days, the vast majority of it.
There used to be a better way. It sort of came and went, and I don't know why it went. We have some material. The station actually has 2 Bigfoot programs on CD Baby. So it's just like an artist having 2 records or songs. When someone downloads that track, I think they pay 99 cents. We get 89 cents. No, we don't make a lot of money at it because it's a couple of old radio shows from way back. But every once in a while, CD Baby will deposit $25 or $30. I think you got to get over 25 before they'll deposit it. But the money is earned because people buy the song. In this case, buy the radio show. We had a DJ here that put some music up on iTunes a number of years ago, and in 6 months he got, 15,000 downloads. He made like $13,500.
Really?
And he had 15,000. So 15,000 plays on Spotify, you made 60 cents. Folks, if you can buy the music, if you support independent artists and you like a song you hear on Spotify, go to their website and download the song and pay for it. You'll own it. It'll be in your device, and you can listen to it anytime you want, not just when Spotify offers it. And the artist will get a fair paycheck for your dollar. Listeners, if you don't have $1, I'll give it to you. Support the artist. Okay, I'm getting on my...
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, and if you like the music, buy it, like you're saying, Z-Man. Don't try to rip it for free. You know, if you like it, buy it. Spend the spend the buck.
I mean, come on, folks. Do you really care about indie artists and good music? Don't get me started. Now, the next tune you wanted to play was Black Sheep, right?
Right.
We're going to play Black Sheep, and now this is from the new CD, which is entitled Hollow Moon, and we're going to talk about that title here in a moment after the song. But give us the background on this cut.
Yeah, Black Sheep, I wrote the song, Z-Man, for all those people that think out of the box. So for all the critical thinkers and free thinkers and people who just are not robots, you're a black sheep and you just keep going. That's what the song is all about. It's for all those people that think for themselves.
You are listening to the music of Mike Williams. And folks, you know, you can support independent artist music by getting out there and spending a little bit of money. Mike, what's the best way a customer can support you?
Now, the best way is to go to my hub website, Z-Man. It's laboroflovemusic.com, and you could get to the music that way. You can make a donation. I have free downloads on my Reverb Nation site. You can catch me on SoundCloud. But the best way to support me is to hit the website.
And folks, as always, that website, if you're listening live tonight, it's on the homepage. And if you're listening to this as an archive, that link is right next to the link you just clicked on to listen to this broadcast. We always want to make it easy for you to get in touch and purchase the music. Now, do you ever think about, I think about weird stuff, Mike. Excuse me, but I do. The work that you're doing in your studio is far more important, in my humble opinion, than playing a gig. People can come to a gig and hear you and your brother and the drummer play original material, then they go home and, life goes on. But when you record like you have now created digital copies of your material that will exist in cyberspace forever, forever. Long after we're gone from this planet, your material will still be out there and available to people that want to hear it. How cool is that?
It's very cool. I always said that with my family and my daughter that you leave a legacy. They can listen back, and my daughter can say this is what her father did, or grandchildren can say this is what their grandfather did. This is what he sounded like when he sang his songs and so on. So I mean, even just from that perspective alone, Z-Man, it's a great thing, And yes, and working in a studio is great because the creativity can just flow, especially if you have a home studio. You're not bound by paying studio rates and stuff like that. And I mean, I can do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. So it's just a great creative outlet to have your own studio at home and to do the work. And quite honestly, it's really not that expensive these days to put the studio together.
I don't know if our younger musician comrades truly understand what we had to go through in the 70s. It literally was impossible to put out broadcast quality material from a home studio unless you had lots and lots of money.
Right.
$50,000 to $100,000 to buy the equipment necessary in 1974 to put a broadcast quality tune on the air. Now you need a laptop and Audacity from, you get the laptop at the pawn shop for $50 and download Audacity for free. You're in business.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Back in the day, if you wanted to record a song, you had to go to a studio. And depending upon the studio, the quality of that studio, the equipment they had and everything else, it could range from $50 an hour. This is going back to the late 70s, in the early 80s, to $100 an hour if the studio at the time was 16 track and, pushing 24 tracks. So it cost a bunch of money. And when you're a young guy and, a bunch of young guys in the band, typically the money isn't pouring out of your pockets. So, you had to figure out a way to cobble it together so that you can go in and do your songs. And that's why it was so important back in the day that before you even walked into the studio, you had to be very, very well rehearsed. Otherwise, you were just going to waste a lot of money.
Burn a lot of money. A lot of money, too. And nowadays, with software and a pawn shop laptop, you can do 256 tracks in high digital quality. In a way, it's leveled the playing field, because now it's not just people who have money. Oh, that's right. I was going to say you have to have talent, and then I thought about the Grammys. Oh, crap. All right, I better not go down that line. Yeah, anybody, can you sing? No. Can you play any instruments? No. Can you write music? No. Here's a Grammy.
Yeah, it's really sad.
I'm going off the deep end here, folks, and you can send hate mail to dj@artistfirst.com. We better play another tune before irritate even more people. Now, I didn't ask you while we were on the break during the last song what this track is, so what would you like to play next?
Hollow Moon, the title track from my second album.
Excellent. I have to say, this is, of the 6 songs we're playing tonight, this is my clear favorite. I like this song. So how'd this one come into existence?
It was a song I just wrote. I liked the title of it, and I just came up with this title, Hollow Moon, and I wrote the lyrics. And the lyrics have to do with the fact that the world is not exactly the way we've been told and taught. It's illusionary, and we have to pierce the veil, look behind the curtain to see the great Oz, and that's what Hollow Moon is about.
I was walking down this dusty road, a little tired from carrying this load. What is my life really all about? Born with a smile,
I'd like the listeners, when they have a moment, Google the following statement. Why did NASA nuke the moon? This is factual. Was in the news many times. We sent an atomic weapon to the bottom of the moon, a giant crater. They said it was to see if we could eject ice out into the atmosphere so we could detect it with a probe. Anyway, we nuked the moon, and it rang like a bell. The moon might be hollow. Interesting title. All through life, when you're a musician, as you know, Mike, you hear an expression and you go, man, that'd be a great band name.
Yeah.
But those phrases are fewer and farther between nowadays. If you had to write a paper about Mike Williams, what happens with you in your life when you write a song? Do you hear the music first? Do you hear the lyrics first? How does that process work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think musicians get asked that a lot. Songwriters get asked that a lot. It depends, Z-Man, and I know you know the answer to this. Sometimes it's the music comes first. You're sitting down with your guitar, you're sitting at the piano, and you're playing some chords, and it's coming together. You're like, wow, that sounds pretty good. I could do something with this. And other times it'll be where you get lyrics. And in fact, the next song, Rainy Day, which we're going to play, is exactly that situation where the lyrics came first, and then I wrote the music around the lyrics. So it comes both ways, but generally speaking, I would say for me, it's the music comes first. I sit down and write that, and then I write the lyrics. But there are those times when the lyrics come first.
When you write a song, are some of the songs that you write personal? I mean, that's a dumb question. Of course they are. When you do a song, is it out there? Is it a treasured memory, or is it just another one of the many songs that you're going to write in your life? Am I making any sense there?
Yeah, that depends as well. Sometimes the songs are very personal, and what I do is I don't make it sound like I'm writing something from my diary, but I will layer the music so that it could have multiple meanings depending upon who listens to it. But for me, I know what the intent was behind the lyrics. In other words, what the feelings were, what the emotions were. But not all songs are written like that. I mean, some songs are just fun to write. Like I didn't put it on the list tonight, but I wrote a song off the Hollow Moon album. I just wrote the lyrics. The words sounded good together. It went with the music, and I went with it. Sometimes you have those moments too. There's nothing deep about the song.
Yes, sometimes it just works.
Yeah, the song was Eye Candy, by the way. I have this tendency of sometimes forgetting my own song titles, but yeah, off my Hollow Moon album, Eye Candy. That was the song. I just wrote it. No emotional or attachment to it, anything like that.
Well, the listener is going to take what the listener takes, right?
Right.
We all view a painting differently. We all hear a song differently.
Well, I think that's the key. I think that's the important piece of good songwriting too, is that when people listen to it, they take away what it is that they're getting from it. They have their own interpretation of what that song means to them.
Exactly, and it's going to touch things in your life. That's what's the beauty of art. No two people will hear the same song and hear the same thing. That's just, art is so difficult to describe, but that's one of the attributes. Folks, if you're just tuning in, Mike Williams is our guest. All the programs on the network are archived, so no one misses a show. He's in North Carolina. He writes his own stuff. But not only are you multi-talented in the studio, in the composing and the like, but you're also a person who works on guitars. Am I looking for is that a luthier? Is that the correct term?
Yeah, well, I don't call myself a luthier because I didn't go to luthier school. I am self-taught, Z-Man. So I work on guitars. I have a guitar collection. I have 60 guitars in my collection.
Wow.
I do repairs, everything from, new fretboards, new frets, fret work, electronics, all of that stuff. And most of the work that I do outside of my collection, I do referrals from close friends and family. So I'm not running a business per se, but if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Mike, so-and-so sent me your way and my guitar needs to be fixed and can you do this, can you do that? I'll work on the guitar. But it's a very fun hobby to have because you can actually take these guitars and, as a musician, as a guitar player, you can put into that guitar and you can shape it so that it fits the bill for you personally, so you know what you like in a guitar, you know how you want it to sound and so on and types of parts. So, I really enjoy that work and it's a great hobby.
Of the 60 guitars that you have, what are some of I know it'd be tough. Is it tough to pick one, or how about a couple that are at the top?
Yeah, that's tough because what happens is I'll play one, and that'll be my go-to guitar for a period of time, and then I swap off and I'm playing another guitar. Like On the songs I'm writing right now, I have a Fender Strat. It's Olympic White, and that's the one that I've been using for the last three songs, the last three singles that I wrote, which would be Breathe, Rainy Day, and the new one I'm working on, I Know, which hasn't been released yet. But before that, I mean, I would be, playing other guitars. So other Fenders, other Gibsons, my Gretsch. And I also have, lesser price guitars like Harley Benton's. I love those guitars. Yeah, so I guess it really depends upon what I pick up at the time. I have it in my hand and I start playing it. And there's no guitar that I have that I can say, oh, over, the decades, this has been it. I really do swap off.
What about electric versus acoustic?
I like playing electric because I like to play loud, but I also obviously I play my acoustics. So I have a Martin X series, which is the lower end on the Martin product line, but it's still a great guitar. I have a 12-string Fender Villager. I love that guitar, and I have an Epiphone, a limited edition John Lennon acoustic. So those are the three. I play the Martin most of the time because it just has a wonderful sound when you're recording with the microphones. It just has a nice, clear ring to it. That's my go-to guitar whenever I'm doing recording.
Wonderful, wonderful instruments. And I imagine that you treat them like they're your children. I mean, you see some of these guitar players, treat their guitars horrible, smash them at the end of the thing. Of course, it's not their main guitar. They bring a prop out to do that. But would you ever consider smashing your guitar at the end of a set?
No, never. My guitars, if you saw the collection, they are in wonderful shape. And in fact, one of the things I like to do is to restore old late 60s, 1970s made in Japan guitars. And those were a lot of the Les Paul clones back in the day called the Lawsuit era. I have a collection of those, and they're in great shape. So no, I do not abuse my equipment at all. I never have, never will.
Yeah, if my house catches on fire, I'll be dragging those 7 pianos out of there. My cat's out. Folks, we're going to jump into our next track. This one's out as a single, I believe, and it's called Rainy Day. Check it out.
Rainy day.
we've mentioned this once or twice before, but we're in the business to sell records, folks. That's what these music specials are all about, introducing you to new artists, and hopefully you will support them in whatever way you can. And Mike, in case somebody can't stay till the end of the show, let's tell them one more time, what's the best way to support you?
The best way, Z-Man, is to hit my hub website, which is laboroflovemusic.com. And if you go there, all of my links are there. There's a donation button. You can download music. You can go to Reverb Nation. You can go to SoundCloud. I have some videos up there where I'm jamming with the guitar. So you can just hit that website and you'll find me.
You're a handsome guy. I was looking at those. Do you have to just basically beat the women back from the stage when you perform live?
Yeah, I wish I had that problem. No. No.
You just put out, well, not just, one album in 2012, one album in 2018. I guess the question is there another album? What's next in your music career?
Yeah, so I'm looking to put a third album out within 2 years. So my plan is I'm releasing the singles, and then once I get 8 to 10 singles, I'm going to compile it and put a CD out. And what I didn't want to do, Z-Man, was I didn't want to wait 2 or 3 years with no music going out. So I said, well, you know what? Just release them as they come and just keep a flow of music going out there. And then within 2 or 3 years, just compile it, make an album out of it, and then put that out. So that's my plan.
Well, let us help you any way we can. We are at your disposal. If there's anything we can do to help, further your career and make people aware that you exist, that's what we're here for. Just let us know.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
The website's posted for those of you listening live, and it's next to the archive that you clicked on. And I like your website, laboroflovemusic.com. So is this a labor of love for you, this whole thing? Because, folks, it's hard to do what Mike's doing. You have to love it or you wouldn't do it. Am I right?
Yeah, it is a labor of love. And I have a real quick story. I mean, just right now on the single I'm working on, I'm just tearing my hair out trying to get the vocals just right. So it's one of those things where, you're playing it back, you're listening to it, and you're like, I don't know if that's really, I could do a better job or I can get a better sound. So it's those types of things. And it is a labor of love because you've got to stick to it. And it's not just with vocals. I mean, everybody who's a musician and, a songwriter knows exactly what I'm talking about. It could be guitar tracks you're laying down, bass tracks, drumming, keyboards and stuff. We listen to music differently, right? We listen and we're like, I need to do that a little better. So you go back and you're punching things in or you're redoing a track and so on. So it is a labor of love.
Non-destructive editing is what you were just talking about. It was a breakthrough 20 years ago, and now I think it can be a curse because you can fix anything.
Yeah.
You can sit there and the mix down forever. How do you know when it's done?
Yeah, that is a problem. And especially people like myself who, I know exactly what you're talking about. Let me just say that. I can sit there and go through it over and over and over again. And finally, I do have to say to myself, Z-Man, hey, Mike, it's time. Finish it and move on to the next song.
Well, we hopefully we have timed this perfectly such that the final track, Breathe, will end right at the top of the hour and for our next broadcast. But Mike, we got about a minute left with you. Any last words? Last words looks like you're in the execution room. No. Anything that we've left out on the broadcast that you'd like to bring up? Any shout outs, anything?
We've covered a lot of ground, Z-Man. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. And the shout outs would be to my friends and family that support me. And they're right there, patting Mike on the back saying, hey, keep going. So that's my shout out.
Well, we won't have time to talk about being a family member of a musician, but it's not easy. It's not, but we'll have to save that for our next show. Mike Williams has been our guest, everybody. Labor of Love Music, it's up there. That's the website. Go there and spend $1. Come on, you can do that. This artist absolutely deserves your attention. He's also on Spotify. He's exactly the type person we built this station for. I think I told him that on the last break. Michael, come back anytime. You have friends here. Let us know how we can help.
All right, Z-Man. Thank you so much.
Mess, see the lies show your face and to breathe. Yeah, breathe. Smile for you, smile for me. Born to live, born to see. Look inside, feel the love and breathe. Smile for you, smile for me. Born to live, born to see. Look inside, feel the love and breathe. You need to wake up from your sleep. Walk away, don't be a sheep. Turn off the TV and break the spell. Don't buy a thing they're looking to sell. Come back home to the human race. Don't be afraid to show your face and breathe. Yeah, breathe. Let's go.
Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast, which we call a featured music special. This is something we've been doing for over 20 years. I know you'd think we'd be a little bit better at it by now, but we try, folks, and we do bring you the best new music you have never heard. There are thousands of these programs archived on the Artist First archives. We invite you to join those shows anytime you want. They're absolutely free. Coming up right now is we have a return musician. I believe he's based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not going to tell you about him. You're going to learn about him right from him. Let's welcome Mike Williams. Hi, Mike.
I want to thank you, Z-Man, for having me back on the show. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, it's Mike, it's wonderful to have you back on. Been doing this 27 years, and we've seen a lot of musicians come and go. Regular listeners know that I've been a professional musician for over 40 years, and this is a tough, tough business. And a lot of people are defeated by this business for various reasons. Maybe we'll talk about that later in the show. But it's great to see that you're still hard at it and out there and putting out great stuff. So what's the new album? What are we going to be listening to tonight?
Well, the new album is titled No More Gods, and I chose 6 songs out of the 10 tracks. And the album, if I had to summarize it, Z-Man, focuses on bringing music back into the arena of social commentary. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of stuff that people would say is maybe upside down, is a good way to say it. And with this album, I focused on calling out those things that I thought needed to be addressed. And I really do believe that music is a very strong vehicle in order to do that, to communicate out, because there's a lot of people that think the same way that I know that I do and many others do, but we don't hear it in the music anymore. Many, many years ago, social commentary was very much a part of the rock scene, but that's completely, in my mind, in my opinion, has dissipated over time. And so I tried to bring it back to that.
Which is fantastic. This platform, the music platform, that's not the word I'm looking for, but I think it has not been utilized. We got so many problems out there. I'm tired of hearing about somebody shooting somebody or getting this. You know what I'm just saying? When you have this ability to talk to people, do it like Mike's describing. Talk about something that's socially helpful. Anyway, I'll get off my editorial horse. Let's give them a little bit of background. Now, you're based out of Raleigh, and you're a singer-songwriter, and let's talk about who are the people you listened to growing up?
Oh, growing up, I'm 64 years old, so I go back to the days of the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. So I was very much influenced by the British invasion, music of the 60s, the 70s, and actually, going into the 80s as well. And some people will say that I'm stuck at a time warp because I'm still writing what many people would categorize as classic rock. I call it retro rock, but it's the music that I was born and raised on, and it's the music that I really enjoy to play, and I don't think that it goes out of style, Z-Man. I really don't. I believe that if you write decent songs, good tunes, they're applicable whenever.
In my humble opinion, Mike, there's only two types of music. Music that you like and music that you don't like.
Right.
And, you can put all these crazy names and genres, who cares? You either like it or you don't.
That's exactly right.
Now, reading up about you, I like the part where I was on your website where it said that you became disenchanted. By the way, we're about the same age. Back in the 1980s, you and your brother got together and you recorded original music on a 4-track home studio.
Right.
Yeah, so did we. That's what we all did back then because that's what you could afford. By the way, the Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, was done on a 4-track.
That's right. Yep, 4 tracks.
4 tracks. That's all you need. I did over 500 programs with Artie Kornfeld. He and his buddy Michael Lang were the two guys that put on Woodstock. And Artie went on to be one of the biggest producers in rock music at that time. And they did a lot of their albums on 2 tracks.
Yep.
2 tracks. So that's a great way. I haven't seen anybody that talked about a 4-track for a long time. But nowadays, so what do you use nowadays? What's your setup like these days?
Well, these days I have a home studio. I'm not playing out or doing any of that stuff. The days of lugging equipment around they're over. They've been over for a long time. So I just enjoy writing music. It's wired into me. It's part of my DNA, Z-Man. That's how I look at it. And I have a Tascam 24-track digital recorder. It sits on a drafting table in my office, and I do my thing. And I do all of the music, all of the guitar work, bass work, keyboards. The only thing that I use that is what would be referred to, I guess, as technology is a drum machine. So I use either an Alesis drum machine or a Zoom. And that's how I get the drums down. But everything else is me. All of the singing, the harmonies, the other instrumentals. So
you play all the instruments except the drums?
Yeah, I play all the instruments except the drums. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guitar player by trade, and I played bass for a very long time, starting way back in the late 70s, going into the 80s, when we really couldn't find a bass player. So I was like, tag, I was it.
Well, can't all guitar players play bass?
I think so. I mean, it's just the first 4 strings, right? So
I'm going to get hate mail for that one.
Yeah, well, there's technique, obviously, that separates the great ones from the not so great. But the 4 strings on the bass, if you're playing a 4-string bass, are the top 4 strings of a guitar. So if you're an adequate or a decent guitar player, you should be able to find your way around the bass.
Well, if you're a musician and an artist and creating music and you don't have your own home studio, why not? Home studios are ubiquitous. They've put the mom and pop recording studios out of business 20 years ago. 20 years ago. It's a wonderful thing. I have 2 home studios. You walk in, you throw the switch, and you start creating. It's that simple. Well, let's talk about that after we listen to the first song. The first cut you would like to play for our audience is entitled Breathe. Tell us a little bit about this, and then we'll run it.
Well, Breathe came about when we went through all of the stuff that began in March of 2020, all of the mandates and all of that stuff. And so, it kind of locked everybody down. A lot of folks were in a bad way, losing jobs and all of that stuff. And it was just a very rough period worldwide. So I sat down and I wrote the song Breathe, and it was really capturing my thoughts and what I was feeling at the time about what was going on in the world. So I sat down and wrote the song, and I finished it up in December of, I think it was 2020. So that's when I finished up the song, and it's actually doing fairly well as far as my Reverb Nation website and my SoundCloud. So the song has done pretty well.
Excellent. Here it is, folks.
Mess. See the lies and pass the test. Take off that mask and don't be a fool. Take them to task and send them to school. Come back, brother, to the human race. Don't be afraid to show your face and breathe. Yeah, breathe. Psychopaths that run the show, they laugh at you 'cause you don't know. They call you mindless, stupid and dumb. They lie and cheat, baby, just for fun. Come back, sister, to the human race. Don't be afraid to show your face and breathe.
Track is Breathe. Our guest is Mike Williams, and you're listening to a music special on the Artist First Radio Network. Good cut, Mike. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Z-Man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You know, it's very difficult. The average listener out there probably doesn't realize just how difficult it is to have an idea in your head and then make it come out of a pair of speakers exactly the way you're conceiving it in your brain. How are you in the studio? Is that a joy, or is it a challenge, or I guess it could be a bunch of things? How does that work for you?
it's both a joy and a challenge to actually sit down and write the song. Some songs, they come easier than others. Sometimes you'll have maybe a lyric or a chorus and you build a song around that. Sometimes you have the actual music. You might have, the chords, figured out or something close to what you want. And then you work on that and then you build the lyrics around that. So it goes both ways, It takes time. Writing music is a process. I do have a home studio like yourself. We have the ability to not worry about ringing up the cash register and, writing checks and paying a sound engineer or a studio for the time. You can actually sit down and you can experiment. So you can try different things and see if it clicks. There's many times when I'm absolutely convinced that something I want to do, a certain track that I want to do, is going to work. I have it milling around in my head. And it's funny how many times it will work, but there's other times when you're so convinced that it's going to click and it doesn't. And, so then you go back to the drawing board. It's a creative process, and it does take time, especially when you're putting an album together. That takes a lot of time.
Well, let's focus on the writing aspect, and then we'll focus on the recording aspect. But do you generally hear the music first or the lyrics first?
With me, most of the time, it's the music. So I will have maybe a chord progression or a certain riff, and I think to myself, that's pretty good. And let me see if I can make something more out of it. Occasionally, you could sit down and write the entire song out. Comes quickly. That doesn't mean that that's the final version of the song, but you have the basic structure of the song, and you can build on it from there. And then for me, then I sit down and I write the lyrics. But there are times, like especially when I'm driving and I'm kind of lost in thought, and certain phrases will come to mind. And I will think, that's a pretty good start to a verse, or that might be a good chorus. And so what I usually do is, I'll text what the words are that came to me so that I don't lose them. So I text them to myself. And then later on, I'll go back and look at it and say, well, let me see what I can do with this. So it goes both ways. But for me personally, if I had to say which comes first more often, it will be aspects of the music.
By the way, what a great idea that is, folks, to text yourself or voice record or leave a message on your voicemail instead of losing the thought.
Yeah.
Isn't technology wonderful? How many of you guys out there listening have lost a piece of music or a lyric because you wrote it on that slip of paper and it's long gone?
Yeah, you've got to capture it in the moment. And in fact, what I do, Z-Man, I write a lot of the songs on acoustic. I will write on electric as well, but I will just turn the microphone on my computer, start strumming and playing. And this way, at least I've captured that piece of it. But your point is very important. You do have to capture it, because otherwise, we've all done this. Something's come to us. We think, hey, that's a good idea, whether it be the music or a lyric, and then you lose it and you don't remember it.
I use Sonar in my home studio. That's evolved from this software. I'm dating myself now, Cakewalk. All right, Cakewalk evolved into Sonar, and there's many of them out there that are great. But I use Sonar because I'm used to it and I understand how it works. And I can turn on, when I get in my studio, I can turn on the recording button, and I record I can just let it run for 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours. I just let it run.
Yeah.
And as I'm working on stuff, I got all these different things that's there. I don't care. There's no tape involved, so you're not going to run out of. I could probably let it run for a week and still have room. And what a wonderful thing. Then I go back when I'm not busy, and I'll listen to some of the ideas I have. The ones that are good, I keep. The ones that were, they're not so good, I just delete them. But what a wonderful tool. There's a software called Audacity that we use here at the station. And in fact, I use it a little bit at home in my studio. Audacity, Audacity. It's absolutely free. It is freaking fantastic. And if you're looking for a great digital audio software to use at home, folks, it runs on just about anything. And you can have an unlimited number of track studio in your house for free. Audacity. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's what I use when I record to my desktop. I use Audacity.
Fantastic stuff. Now, you can make a donation to the guys. It's freeware, folks. You're not stealing it. So maybe you want to send them a couple dollars because they're great enough to have made this and given it to the world.
And they're very good at keeping it updated.
And it can do everything. Oh, my God. It is a wonderful, wonderful tool. We've been using it here at the station for years and years and years. Now, being, you write the music, you record the music. So should we consider this then a solo project, that it's all you? Is your brother involved?
No, it's just me. Over the years, what happened, everybody goes about having their life. The first album that I recorded goes back, I started recording it back in late 2011. And so we're going back, 12 years ago. I've been playing, before that, obviously. We just talked about the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. But I actually sat down and decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to put my first album out. And that was an album titled Leaving Dystopia. It was released back in 2012 or 2013. But it's just me. Now, my brother and I have talked about getting back together to do some work. He's a drummer by trade, but he's also a very good keyboard player. And so we're going to have to see if we can make that work out. But with everybody's schedule and everything that's going on, sometimes that's a little difficult.
Nothing against your brother. I'm sure he's a fine gentleman. But, folks, if you've ever been in a recording studio with a group of musicians, good luck. Musicians have certain personalities, and they often butt heads, and there can be a lot of arguments and opinions. So when you do it by yourself, you eliminate all those tensions of having to, compete with musician-type personalities. All right, well, let's scoot on to the next track. In fact, folks, we're going to play the track right now. It's called When You Gonna Get It, and when we come out on the other side, our guest Mike Williams can tell us about it. Here it is.
You don't understand. Gotta be a mama who carried the load, pulling you along that rocky road. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? Your tale of woe, all this time with little to show. Gotta be a daddy who did you wrong, making you feel like you didn't belong. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it?
You are listening to the music of Mike Williams. He's our featured music special tonight. There is another show that Mike did with us. If you go back on our music show archives, it's alphabetically listed, and you can find that. Now, we told the audience you were going to tell us about that cut. It was called When You Gonna Get It. So how did that song come together?
Yeah, so as I mentioned when we started the conversation, Z-Man, I wanted this album to focus a lot on social commentary. So when I take a look around me, I see a lot of people that they don't really want to work for what they get or what they have or what they desire. So the song is about the fact that you have to pay your dues. So if you're looking to succeed in life, there's going to be work involved. You're going to have to pay your dues, and that's just how it works in my mind. I mean, at least that's how it worked when I was growing up and how I lived my life and how I was brought up. So when I look around me, I don't see that. I see that kind of falling apart where a lot of society is looking for instant gratification. They don't want to work very hard for whatever it is that, they're seeking to obtain. And so the song just came based upon that thought process.
Well, I'm going to get some hate mail because that's what I do. But a lot of today's music sucks out loud. If you can't sing and you can't play an instrument, how can you win a Grammy?
Yep.
Okay, you guys are welcome to send hate mail to DJ@artistfirst.com, and I'll put them in the big fat file that we have. It's very frustrating to have spent a lifetime trying to master your instrument, trying to be the best you can in performance and recording, and then look up and see some of this stuff. Okay, I've said enough about that. What's your thoughts on that topic?
I agree with you 100%, Z-Man. I mean, what we're hearing today is a lot of rubbish. It's all performance-based. It's not based in musical aptitude, knowing how to play the guitar, the bass, the drums, the keyboards, or whatever. When you listen to my songs, and I'm not patting myself on the back, this is just the way it is. When you're listening to my songs, that's me. And it's not being enhanced with all of this technology. Don't get me wrong, the technology has its place and it can be very useful, but not to the point where it's taking the human element completely out of the song. And that's the problem that I have. Music is now becoming very digitized. It's very artificial. It has lost its soul from a human creativity perspective.
I believe, this is just my personal opinion, but I believe I can tell when a piece of music has been written because the guy that wrote it, he writes the music and then he stands out by his mailbox and waits for the truckloads of money to come in. In other words, he writes it to make a profit, not for the art of writing music, not for the, like you talked about at the beginning of the show, not trying to make a commentary on society, but to just make that money, get that money.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think you can tell. I think the public can tell. This is an interesting question that I like to ask original music artists. As you're working on your material, and you've been working on the same song for hours or weeks or months, how do you know when it's finished?
Yeah, that's a good question, because if you're like me, that process can go on for a long time, because you're always thinking it could be just a little better. And if you just do a little bit more, you can just push the envelope. And but sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, you know what? I can't overthink this either. And perhaps what I have right now is good to go. And I think sometimes songwriters and musicians have a tendency maybe to overproduce. And, I've done that. I found that the more basic you keep it, generally speaking, the better off you are.
It was B.B. King, I think, who famously said, when it comes to recording music, less is more.
Right.
Now, how I've solved that issue is, when do I know when it's done? Some of my songs have 15 versions. Sped up, slowed down, changed the instruments. I have many, many different versions of the same song because, well, number one, I have the ability to do that. And sometimes I like when it's an acoustic. Sometimes I like when it's fully orchestrated. And that's how I solve that problem. I just make another version.
Yeah, I've done that too. I've had versions where here's the electric version, here's the acoustic version, here's the piano version.
Yeah,
Yeah,
why not? Why
yeah.
not? All right, we're going to move on to the next track. If you're just joining us, Mike Williams is our guest. He's back. He was with us before. You can find that program on the archives. And Mike's choice for our next cut is a Don't Let Go. What are we going to hear now?
Don't Let Go is a song actually that was co-written with my wife. My wife actually came up with the lyrics and the melody, and she would just sing the song to me, and then I would put the music to it, and so it was a collaboration. And so this is my wife's song, with Mike just doing the music.
Waves of desperation come crashing in again, feeling the sensation. I need you to the end, don't you know? I need my baby, don't you know? I need my baby, don't let go. Assess the situation, the truth is plain to see. This abomination, there's only you for me, don't you know? I need my baby, don't you know? I need my baby, don't let go.
All right. That's a nice little track.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Do you have favorites? You know, is there a songs that you write that just become, for whatever reason, some of your favorite material, and others that are, hey, I mean, you like them, it's your material, but they're not quite as, what am I trying to say here, dear to your heart as others?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's certain songs that you write that you like them, and there are other songs that you write. I mean, you wrote them, and you think, they're good. But there's definitely a pecking order. There are songs that you write that you think, well, that really is a pretty good song. And there are other songs that you write, and you're like, well, it's a song. It's a good song. I mean, I try not to put anything out there that I'm not pleased with. But like I said, there are degrees of being pleased. And some songs, you really like that you do. And other songs, they fall to the lower end of the pecking order.
Kind of like having children. Well, I know, because I'm kind of low on the pecking order as far as my family. I accept that. I'm okay. It's okay. Now, let's talk about musical instruments. My musical instruments, I have 7 pianos. I might have 8 pianos. I'd have to think. If my house is on fire, once I get my loved ones out of the house, I'm going back in for those pianos. They are soulmates to me. And yet there's people who see a piano like a hammer or a chainsaw. It's just a tool. Do you have favorite instruments? How do you relate to your tools?
Oh, yeah. I have there's certain guitars. I have a large guitar collection. I have about 50 guitars that I've collected over the years. Some of them go back into the late 1960s and into the 70s. And, into the 80s. Most of those are really collectibles, if you will, but I also have my guitars that are my go-to guitars. As an example, I have a 2007 Strat that I play with a humbucker back towards the bridge, and that's the guitar that I usually use whenever I'm playing lead guitar. And I have other guitars that I pick up. I have a Fender American Standard Telecaster that I'll use if I really want like a bright sound to the song. In fact, it's the guitar I use to play the lead in the song Billy Pepper, which we'll play, I guess, pretty soon. I do have go-to guitars, Z-Man. It's just interesting how some guitars just feel better in your hands. And that might seem weird to some folks because they might think, well, isn't a guitar just a guitar? And it's not. Some guitars do feel better playing than others.
If you try to calculate the number of hours during rehearsals, during recordings, and during performances that I have spent with some of my keyboards, I have an SY85 Yamaha keyboard. I probably played 1,500 gigs, 2,000 jobs with this piano.
Wow.
I have actually, my fingernails have actually worn ruts, divots in some of the keys.
Yeah.
I probably should have trimmed my nails, but I'm just saying, for me, I become very close to my instruments. I know that sounds wacky to you guys out there, but okay, let's move on to Johnny Lighttone. What's this one about?
Johnny Lighttone addresses all of the lies and deception that we get bombarded with every day. And so Johnny Lighttone is a personification of anyone or any entity that feeds us a bunch of nonsense, lies, deception, propaganda, and so on. Because I've been asked, once I released the song, people were asking me, well, who is Johnny Lighttone? And my answer is Johnny Lighttone is somebody who's not feeding you the truth.
Hey, look over there, it's a shiny silver ship. Man, that's cool. Man, he's hip with his jet black hair and his big white smile. He lies to you, but he does it with style. He promises the moon with a sleazy little wink. His rattlesnake eyes
music of Mike Williams on the Artist First Radio Network. Mike, for people that just joined us, where can they pick up your music?
They can just go to my hub website, Z-Man. It's laboroflove.com. Laboroflove.com. And if you go there, all the links to my songs and Reverb Nation, SoundCloud, and all that stuff, it's all there.
There's a giant service out there that all the artists subscribe to. To make $1, you have to have 1,500 plays to make $1.
Yeah, are you referring to Spotify?
I think I am. Thank you. That's exactly right. Most musicians hate Spotify because of what I just mentioned. They keep the money, however they're doing it, and they pay musicians crap. So what I'm trying to say, listeners, buy the song. Go download the song and spend $1. Folks, if you don't have $1, I'll give it to you. But the artist gets to keep the majority of the money. What is wrong with that? Instead of those music industry bastards taking all the money, how about the artist get some of it? Wait, I'm sorry. I need to take my blood pressure pills. Your thoughts on that, Tom?
Yeah, if you're interested in purchasing the album, go to my Reverb Nation because that's where I'm selling it. And Z-Man is absolutely right. I think Spotify, if I'm not mistaken, was sued a number of years ago for not doing the right thing from a royalty perspective. So I don't pay much attention to Spotify. My songs are up there, but I really don't pay much attention to it. I push my music through Reverb Nation, SoundCloud, and platforms like that.
When we had the guy from Jefferson Airplane on, Marty Ballin, when we had him on the Artie Kornfield show, he said right over the air, I'm not going to mention the name of the company because I don't want to get sued, but he said, hey, insert company name here. He said, hey, where's my money?
Yeah.
Michael Shreve from Santana, hey, where's my money? Corey Wells from Three Dog Night, same thing. Interviewed, the guy that wrote Me, the Mob, and the Music. And on the interview, he says, Z-Man, my record label owes me $30 million.
Holy smokes.
That's why Artist First was created. Artist First. Because always the artist is the last person to make the money. All the dirtbags and scumbags, they make the money. Tommy James was the name. He's the person that we had on, wrote Me, the Mob, and the Music. And he's the one that publicly states they stole $30 million of his money.
So Tommy James from the Shondells?
Yep. Tommy James. That's what he said to me personally on the air in front of our audience. And go get the book. You can get it.
Okay.
Tommy James and the Shondells. And I said, well, Tommy, why don't you sue your label? He goes, my label is owned by a well-known mafia boss.
I think they used to record on roulette.
Yep. He names the person who since has died. And he waited till his mafia boss died, and then he put the book out. And you can go look. It's called Me, the Mob, and the Music by Tommy James and the Shondells, and that's what he says. Now, Mike, do you mind if we go over a few minutes? We got the show in front of you ran right up to the hour, so we started a few minutes late. Is that going to infringe on your schedule tonight?
No, not at all, Z-Man.
Okay, then I won't have to rush through this. All right, well, anyway, folks, the music industry has a terrible, horrible track record, okay? It just does. The artists are constantly getting screwed. Here's a quiz question for the audience. When you spend $20 on a CD, how much of that money do you think the artist gets to put in their pocket? You got a number in your head? It's wrong. It's easy, $10. No. No? Is it $5? No. How about $2? No. How about $1? No. A great record contract, maybe 50 cents. Where does the rest of that money go? Not to the artists. Oh, Z-Man, you don't know what you're talking about. Really? Look it up. And that's what goes to the whole band. All right, that's what they split up among everybody in the band. The rest of the money the artist never sees. A good record deal is, we'll make you famous, but you'll make us rich. And that's been the motto of the record business all these years. Ask Taylor Swift. Anyway, so all the benefits, Mike, of you doing it on your own, you at least get to keep the benefits of what you do. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on these tangents. It's one of the reasons why we started the station, and we like to tell it the way it is. We've been threatened. We've been threatened by certain parties to not talk about these things.
Is that right?
Yep, one of our founding people left the company because they said, "Hey, it was your daughter had a nice yellow dress when she got off the bus last week."
No way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He said, "You know what? I'm out of here," and he left the company.
Wow.
You don't hear this other places, do you, folks? But it's the truth. Okay, on that pleasant thought, let's get on to our next cut. Billy Pepper, interesting track title. What's this about?
Okay, so are you aware of the rumor of Paul McCartney being replaced?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Billy Pepper is a song that I wrote about the replacement of Paul McCartney, the Paul is Dead conspiracy. So I sat down because I've known about the conspiracy going back to when I was, oh my God, into the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and I wrote a song about the conspiracy, and that's it, Billy Pepper. Billy Shears is the replacement, and he was introduced on the Sgt. Pepper album. And so I took Billy Shears and the Sgt. Pepper album, but I married the two names, Billy and Pepper, and created the song.
Excellent. Let's hear it, folks.
Hey there, Mr. Shears, I see you wrote a book. I heard about the rumors, so I had to take a look. Going back to yesterday, I see a different guy. And you may say there is no way, but I see through the lie. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper, you said hello when the first guy waved goodbye.
Yes, that does sound like a song that could have been on the Sgt. Pepper album. You captured the flavor of the Beatles song on that cut. Congratulations, at least in my opinion.
Oh, thank you, Z-Man. That was the intent. The intent was to make it as Beatlesque as I possibly could.
Yeah, it works. Well, folks, we're down to our last segment with our guest, Mike Williams, and then we'll be ending with one more track. But, Mike, what have we left out? And you can take as long as you want. You want to thank people? You want to, is there some thoughts that you'd like to bring forth on this program before we're done?
The only thought that came to mind, Z-Man, is that I would really like my fellow songwriters and musicians, I would like a lot more of us to step out and to write about what's going on in the world, engage with social commentary, put it out through the music, and try to make the world a better place. And we can do that through the music and not get so caught up in what you were saying before, where it's more about pumping out a product versus what I would consider art. And I think it's very important that many of us get back to that. And I realize that, the money is more on pumping out the product and going along with what you're told to put out. For a lot of the independent artists, I think it's very important for us to shake it up a little bit. I really do. And to get the word out there. And there's no better way to do it than with music.
Look at Bob Dylan. You look back at the songs he wrote, and you look at the lyrics, and it's the time of the Vietnam War, and man, and he had such an impact. I totally agree with you. Why aren't more musicians in the troubled times that we are? Now, I do have some information on an artist that was going to put out a song. I'm not going to mention the title because it was a little derogatory towards Donald Trump. I'm just tell you the truth here. It was a song about Donald Trump. It made fun of him. And this artist was going to release it, and he was talking to me about it, and he chose not to because he was afraid. He was afraid of what those people, whoever those people are, might do to him. He was afraid he'd put his family at risk if he made a song tongue-in-cheek song, about Donald Trump. And I had to agree with him. In the old days, there's a lot of songs that talk about politicians, this and that. But I don't know that those artists feared for their lives and the lives of their families. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first question I was going to ask you, is this an artist that people would be familiar with?
No, this was an independent artist.
Independent, yeah. Well, the problem is this is the world we live in now. We live in a world where if you cut across the grain and you don't row the boat in the right direction, then you could have issues. At the very least, we know about all of the censorship that takes place on platforms like YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and platforms like that. It's called cancel culture. That's what it's called. If you're not saying what you're supposed to be saying or what they've determined that you should be saying or thinking, then you do run the risk at the very least of being canceled, ridiculed, and I guess depending upon how much reach you have, then you could have more significant issues like this person was concerned about. Now, I'm not so sure that they would have taken him out or whatnot, but in all likelihood, the song may have been censored or pulled. I know a guy, I can't say who he is, who's been a songwriter for, must be 40 years. And he was with, I think, CD Baby for many, many years. And he was putting songs out that had to do with social commentary. And they yanked his entire portfolio from CD Baby. They basically told him, we're not going to carry you anymore as an artist. We're not going to put your product out. So good luck. Find somebody else to go do that for you. And this was after many years of putting his work out through them. So these things do happen. So if you're not singing out of the proper hymnal, then stuff like that happens. Plain and simple. And for people who think it doesn't happen, you need to wake up because it does.
Well, that's disturbing to hear that because in the early days, we actually had Derek Sivers on. Some people say it's Severs. He was the founder of CD Baby. And he came on the broadcast, and we had a great show with him. And I can't imagine that happened while he was still the owner. Now, he sold out, made a bunch of money, and it was I don't know who bought out CD Baby, but it was a big corporate group. And Derek made a comment on the program that I had to correct him on. He said, we were the first company to sell independent music CDs on the internet. I said, Derek, I'm sorry, but you're not. We were doing it 6 months before you are. We chose to go a different route. Derek Sivers retired, I don't know, a billionaire. I live in my van down by the river. We chose a different path to go into radio, but we may be, there's a footnote for you folks, look it up. We may be the very first company to ever sell independent music on the internet. 1997. I believe it was early 97 or late 1996 when we started. And we're not millionaires. All right. Well, Mike, you have an open invitation here. You're welcome here anytime. It's been great to spend some time with you. We're wrapping up here, folks, and we're going to go out with one more track. It's called No More Gods. And Mike, let us know what's up with this track before we hear it.
No More Gods is about investing in yourself, being your own authority, empowering yourself. Stop going outside yourself. Be the best that you can be your own authority, and be empowered.
I think you got some great stuff there, and you've done a hell of a job, and just keep doing what you're doing. You deserve to be heard.
Yeah, it's part of who I am, Z-Man. So I don't do it thinking I'm going to make $1 million. I do it because I love doing it. I just like putting music out. That's it. At 64 years old, I got a grandson, and my wife and I spending a lot of time with the baby and doing other stuff. So that's where I'm at in life.
Wonderful thing to have grandchildren, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really is.
I got a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and she is everything to me. Wonderful experience. Yeah. Well, it'll be a day or two. We'll have the archive up there, and your music will be playing on the internet forever.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
It fluctuates. In the summertime, it's a little lower. In the winter, it's much higher. But we get about a download from our archives about every 15 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes when it peaks, it's like every 3 seconds. In the summer, it slows down because people have other things to do in the northern hemisphere. But, we've had 500 and I've lost track. It's on the homepage. 535 million hours of music and author shows downloaded. Well, that's since 2007. Yeah, I mean, people, they choose to listen. We can't make anybody listen to anything. They listen because they want to.
Right.
So I hope people want to listen to your stuff, and I hope they'll go out and buy it.
Well, it's a good thing you're doing. I'm telling you what, it's very good. I appreciate it.
Well, Mike, I'll let you get back to what you're doing. Sorry I kept you over, and let us know what's going on in the future. We'll be here when you're ready again.
All right, Z-Man. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mike. Be good. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
machine. Welcome to a machine.